Now we move on to our next news. In a clear message to Israel, the German and Austrian foreign ministers jointly called for a greater humanitarian access to Gaza during a press briefing in Vienna. While affirming their country's support for Israel's security, both ministers stressed that international law and human rights cannot be sidelined. Austrian Foreign Minister Reisinger warned against any moves to permanently occupy Gaza or displace its population, insisting Gaza must remain Palestinian. Her German counterpart, Johann Weidpool, echoed concerns, saying the suffering of civilians, especially starving children, demands urgent action. Let's listen in to the Austrian and German foreign ministers.
Ja, ich teile diese Sorge über diese israelischen Pläne oder Wortmeldungen bezüglich einer dauerhaften Besatzung und Vertreibung der palästinensischen Bevölkerung aus Teilen Gazas. Gaza muss aus österreichischer Sicht palästinensisch bleiben. Und es ist auch Gegenstand unserer Gespräche, dass wir immer wieder darauf hinweisen, dass Israel im legitimen Kampf gegen den Terrorismus an das Völkerrecht gebunden ist. Unser Ziel ist es, vollumfänglich zu Verhandlungen zurückzukehren.
Wir setzen darauf, dass die Waffenstillstandsbemühungen erfolgreich sind. Ich habe darüber auch gestern noch einmal mit meinem US-Kollegen Marco Rubio telefoniert. Wir sehen die Aussicht, ich sehe die Aussicht, dass wir zu einem guten Ergebnis kommen. Ich habe auch in den vergangenen Tagen noch einmal dem katarischen Außenminister mitgeteilt, dass die Welt sehr darauf achtet, dass jetzt auch auf Hamas der notwendige Druck entfaltet wird.
The two ministers expressed hope that recent EU-Israel talks could lead to improved aid delivery and possibly pave the way for ceasefire. Responding to these calls, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said his country has taken concrete steps following talks with the EU, including more aid trucks, crossings, and routes into Gaza. He also confirmed that Israel is serious about reaching a hostage deal and ceasefire, with negotiations ongoing in Doha. Let's listen into what the Israeli Foreign Minister had to say.
Israel is serious in its will to achieve a hostage deal and the ceasefire in Gaza, and I believe it is achievable. We sent a delegation to Doha, and we are negotiating there already for the 5th day. And according to the framework, if a temporary ceasefire will be achieved, we will negotiate on a permanent ceasefire.
Now we're joined for this discussion with Nasser Mashni. He's a president at Australia Palestine Advocacy Network, joining us live from London. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. How much pressure does this joint statement put on Israel to allow more humanitarian access into Gaza, and does this have any impact according to you?
Well, thank you for having me, and absolutely no impact. Further, merely words from complicit governments as the Palestinians in Gaza are suffering what can only be described now as a Holocaust. We have the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, talking about concentrating Palestinians into one area. We know what that means. We've seen it before in 1939 in Germany. It's a concentration camp. Israel's moving beyond the first stage of this genocide, moving to a complete and utter genocide.
Even though you've shown pessimism, is there any realistic path for Europe to help broker solutions that protect civilians and address those humanitarian needs on the ground in Gaza?
It's been 642 days where Europe could have done something, should have done something, but did nothing. They abrogated their responsibility to the Palestinians, to humanity, to international law. Germany and the EU continues to supply weaponry. They remain complicit in the Holocaust being perpetuated on the Palestinian people.
And now, looking at this, how do Germany and Austria balance supporting Israel's security with calling out actions that could violate international law?
Well, there is no balance between Israel's security as an occupying power and the people that it occupies, who have an internationally enshrined right to self-defense and to fight against an illegal occupation. We are beyond the words of what the European Union might be able to do, or Germany, or any of those other countries might do. What needs to happen is a total and utter arms embargo and immediate sanctions on Israel until it stops this genocide.
Do you think that other countries will follow this lead? Could this message from two major EU countries push other European nations to adopt a stronger stance on Gaza?
Well, these words are nothing. I don't know why you entertain any value to them. They have been saying these words for 641 days and Israel has ignored them. They ignored Biden's red line on Rafah. They've ignored the UN call for a ceasefire. They've ignored UN special rapporteurs. Israel is a rogue, genocidal, apartheid state that cannot be allowed to exist in the way it does. It exists this way purely because of the way the legitimacy that the West confers upon it. It's time for this illegitimate state to cease existing. We need sanctions on it, as we did in apartheid South Africa. We need sanctions, we need divestment, we need to hold it to account. Israel and its leaders need to go to The Hague to face the full impacts of international law, and the leaders of these parties need to be held accountable in jail for the rest of their lives, and reparations have to be made to the Palestinians that have suffered.
And how might Israel respond to its close European allies or partners warning against permanent occupation or the displacement of Gazans to any other location?
I've got to tell you, in 640 days, this is the funniest question I've had. Have you paid any attention to how Israel has reacted to everything that Europe has said? Israel doesn't care one iota what anyone says other than America until the European countries stand up, show their independence, and actually stand up for humanity, a common humanity for all. Israel will continue to ignore and continue to kill. That's why the streets are filled with protesters demanding real action for the Palestinian people, because they've been let down by their governments who have abrogated, and their loss of humanity is just beggars belief that we're in a situation where 640 days people have been starved, killed, there's not a school left. Children, Palestinian children, haven't been to school for 21 months. Israel, in all its barbarity, destroyed the only IVF clinic in Gaza, destroying 4,000 embryos, denying Palestinian men and women the chance of having families. Do you think they care what a German chancellor says or a foreign minister? They don't care, which is why they need to be held accountable, and there needs to be sanctions on this rogue, genocidal apartheid state.
Nasser, what's your message to the international community about protecting Gaza's Palestinian identity and population?
I don't think I could have been much clearer. The world created this problem when they made Palestinians pay for the European disease of anti-Semitism. The Palestinians had no involvement in the Holocaust. The Palestinians had no involvement in Russian pogroms, Spanish Inquisition, or any of the other horrors that befell the Jewish people. Yet we were made to pay the price. We were made to pay the price, and we live in exile, we live in occupation, and currently being genocided. What needs to happen is the world needs to step up and make sure this stops. They need to be sending thousands of ships in flotillas to break the blockade, and military intervention. Not just Iran, all countries should be threatening military intervention on Israel until it stops this genocide.
Nasser, thank you for sharing that. You will stay with us as we stay on this topic.